Mike, thank you for coming to us.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the brain. I think the whole cavity has a really tightly connection between the brain. I think.
So you mean the microbiome? You're talking about
not only the microbiome. From the neurobiological effects, you have always oral cavity as the internal organs of the brain.
Okay, that's a new. I've heard of the oral microbiome, mainly the gut microbiome.
Okay.
You know, when you talk about the gut microbiome, then you talk about the oral microbiome. But you mean like the teeth or the gums or what?
With the teeth. But today I think we should talk about the light.
Okay.
Please tell us about the light and the connection between the light therapy in the oral cavity and the brain.
Okay, I've never thought about that. So, you know, I'm not a dentist, and there's been a lot of dental sessions, and dentists like photobiomodulation for sure. Why should that affect the brain? I have no idea.
You know, you have made some research about light therapy on the brain, and it's obvious that it works just when you have it above your brain. But
well, I think the whole body, actually. I mean, you know, folks that are doing whole bodies see big effects on the brain for sure.
What do you think is the effectivity if you make the therapy come from the oral cavity?
I never thought about it.
Never thought about it. But please, talk about your research you made with light therapies.
I mean, so I think maybe what you're getting at is if you're doing, you know, blood irradiation, you can do it in the nose, like the Violite, the intranasal, and you can do it on the wrist. Okay. And you can also do it under the tongue, so sublingual. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
And I imagine if you just stick it in the mouth, there's enough blood flow in the mouth to absorb the light. But whether that's the best way of doing it, I don't know.
What do you think about the pharyngeal area, backwards in the mouth? There's a lot of blood, there's a lot of...
Okay, if you say there's a lot of blood flow in the back of the throat, you're probably right. I'm not an anatomist, so I don't know for sure. You want to...
So we are very, very...
You want to put the light in there with a device? Yeah. It's not very comfortable, right?
Maybe, but we are very close to the columna vertebralis, so it's very central to the brain.
You mean the light's going to get there directly?
No. No. It's not possible.
Well, a few photons, but...
Yes, we can use the bloodstream.
Yeah, I think the bloodstream is... But I mean, there's a lot easier ways of getting light in the blood.
Yeah.
I mean, the veins in the wrist are the obvious thing. I mean, they're right there at the surface. You know, you've got veins at the back of your knee. I mean, they're a lot more comfortable to get to in the back of the throat.
Yes, but you have to put it into the body, and the light in the oral cavity is much more easier. But it's another step. What do you think about the light therapy? What's the next step we could use in medicine?
Well, I mean, I think the way light therapy is going is to wearable LED devices, rechargeable wearable devices that people will keep at home.
Home device.
And they'll charge them up and they'll put them on their head or on their belly or on their limbs or wherever they want them, and they'll be flexible and, you know.
But what is the risk of the self-therapy?
What's the risk of
self-therapy when people have the device?
No, people are not stupid. People can easily titrate their own treatments, and that happens all the time. I have people emailing me saying, what device shall I get? I tell them, they get the device, and then they say, how often should I use it, for how long? And I tell them, but then they can figure it out. You know, they start off once a day. They say, oh, well, tried it 2 or 3 times a day. That was better. And sometimes people say, oh, use it every day, but I thought it was getting a bit too much, so I went down to once every 2 days. And most people are smart enough to figure this out for themselves.
There's no risk of dosimetry. There's
not with LEDs. No. Not with LEDs. I mean, 10 to 20 milliwatts per square centimeter. I mean, nobody's got the patience to put it on for hours. You probably need to wear it all day to even stand a chance of doing any harm.
So the home device is the next future, you say?
I believe so.
Which experience do you have with the home device patients?
Well, mainly for the head, but, there's the willow curve for the knee. That's a cool device. And I don't know if you were at my talk, I showed a jacket, a full body jacket LEDs, 300 watts. Yes. Most of these big devices are hundreds of watts.
Okay.
And if that was a laser, you'd be talking millions of dollars. But in LEDs, it's 1,000 or something.
Yes. Some companies are producing such devices for heads. What do you think about?
Probably good.
Probably good? Yeah. You have one?
I have a device to put on my head, yes. It's not a commercial device, it's sort of prototype, but yes, I do have one, 830 nanometers.
830, okay, yes. And such could be the future just for sportsmen, wearing during sports?
Well, sportsmen's usually on the muscles, but I guess they could put it on their head, because it sort of increase their coordination, concentration.
What do you think about?
That's probably worth doing.
Yeah.
I think for sportsmen, a big whole body device is probably best. So, people can't afford a light bed, but they can afford a big LED panel, a big Joule or something like that.
For regeneration or what do you
Well, recovery. Performance, recovery, better sleep.
Better sleep?
Oh, yeah. It's great for helping you sleep. That's one of the big applications of photobiomodulation, is helping you sleep.
How come better sleep? How come?
Good question. I don't think people know the exact details.
Not so. Is there connections to the epiphysis?
I mean, melatonin for sure. So red and near-infrared upregulate melatonin. But I think it's probably more than just melatonin, actually.
But I think the laser light doesn't last till to the epiphysis. How?
The what?
There's a distance from the application to the epiphysis. These are more than 5 centimeters. I think there's no impact of laser light to the epiphysis.
Epiphysis, what exactly is that?
Where it's producing melatonin.
You mean in the suprachiasmatic nucleus? No, it's probably mediated via the eyes, actually.
By the eyes.
Probably for the melatonin, I think. Yeah, red light at night and blue light in the morning.
Blue light in the morning.
But it might be systemic.
Okay.
A lot of photobiomodulation is systemic. When you do whole body, there's an awful lot of blood circulating in the skin capillaries that absorbs photons, an awful lot.
By the blood flow. It's transported by the blood flow.
Well, I think the eyes might be involved as well.
Okay. And that's the explanation for recovery.
No, that's the explanation for better sleep. The explanation for recovery is the muscles, quite clearly. You've got these muscles that are stuffed full of mitochondria, and they're sucking up the light.
Okay. And just to separate, so better sleep for the whole body is by the bloodstream to the epiphysis.
And maybe the eyes.
Maybe the eyes.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's not clear.
Not exactly clear.
Okay. It's very interesting.
But I mean, putting near-infrared on your head helps you sleep.
Right.
But that's not red. That's near-infrared.
It's near-infrared.
So that's probably not melatonin. That is doing something else.
Something else. And how come? How could we explain it?
I don't know whether we actually have I don't think I know enough about sleep physiology to really explain it. But there probably is a reason.
There's a reason, but we don't know why.
Not exactly.
Not exactly. And are there some models of understanding these things?
As I say, I don't really know that much about sleep physiology. I'm sure sleep physiologists do have models they can study. I'm sure they do, because insomnia is one of the big problems of the modern age, and especially with everybody being digitally connected 24 hours a day, and there's going to be chronic sleep deprivation. And I'm sure near-infrared light could help these people. I'm sure it could.
Okay. Yes, I think it's a great target we should think about for the future studies. Coming back to the brain, what do you think? What is the next step for the laser therapy for all the devices we have in brain therapy?
Well, I mean, I think Alzheimer's and Parkinson's are the two big goals. They affect millions of people. Incidence is increasing, and nearly all the drug trials have failed dismally. These are chronic degenerative diseases, and photobiomodulation has been shown to help in small clinical trials, not randomized double-blind controlled trials yet, but they are ongoing. And people will have to use photobiomodulation for the rest of their lives. It's not like it's a treatment that's going to cure anything, but nevertheless, it could give them many years of useful life. And then a lot of psychiatric disorders, and psychiatric drugs are notoriously bad and a lot of side effects. And
in this part, you are talking about the neuroplasticity.
I think neuroplasticity is a big part of it, and neurogenesis.
Neurogenesis and neuroplasticity.
I believe they're big parts of it, but also anti-inflammation. A lot of brain disorders are correlated with neuroinflammation.
With silent inflammation or inflammation,
Yeah.
What do you think a growing brain? What do you think about children?
Good question. So the childhood brain disorder that there's some anecdotal evidence is autism. And apparently it can have dramatic effects. So little kiddies are totally autistic, suddenly, almost not suddenly, but within a short time start behaving a lot better. But people are a bit worried about little kiddies because they're developing, their brain is growing, and if photobiomodulation is as powerful as we say it is, some people are a bit worried.
Yeah. What's your personal opinion about it?
I think you need to do preclinical studies, because everybody works with mice and rats. I mean, for instance, you could put red near-infrared light on the belly of pregnant mice and rats and just see what happens, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's easy to do. I don't think anybody's actually done that experiment.
You have to do.
Unfortunately, my lab is closed down, so I can't do it, but somebody can do it. I mean, if intrauterine photobiomodulation can really help the developing fetus, then it might be worth trying.
Yeah.
But again, you would really need to do a lot of animal studies because there is intrinsic dangers in messing about.
It's a basement. We know what we do.
Yeah.
But I think we are talking about autism. Autism is growing in Germany. Autism is growing worldwide. How could we increase the database on these fields in connection to light therapies?
How could we increase the database?
Yeah, how could we do it?
Well, I mean, in this meeting, people have been proposing online databases. I mean, it was really for collecting clinical results. I mean, you want something in addition to peer-reviewed publications, which is well established. Is that right? You're suggesting something in addition?
Yeah.
So a curated database that anybody can add to?
No, that we can get the information growing up in these scenes problems too early. I think our problems with these fields of children are a practical way we could get new possibilities of treatment with laser therapy.
I still didn't quite follow the question.
Sorry. You know, we need new thinking models to understand how laser therapy is working on children.
Okay, yeah.
And how could we increase the databases that people can get in touch more fluently, more faster with laser techniques just in growing brains?
So you're specifically talking about the brains of children?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, you really got to be targeting childhood diseases, right? I mean, you know, cognitive enhancement is all very well, but cognitive enhancement will be established in adults way before it's ever used in children. Yeah. I mean, but for childhood brain disorders, you know, and the obvious ones are autism and ADHD. You know, you could try treating them with photobiomodulation. The evidence suggests it'll work. You know, I'm guessing that if it's a relatively limited series of treatments, people are not going to worry too much, right? You're not going to cause any permanent brain damage by putting light on the head a kiddie for a few weeks.
The risk is not too high.
Not for a limited series of treatments. Now, if you tell a kiddie you've got to put light on his head for the next 10 years, and you know, people are going to worry a bit, I think.
Yeah. What do you think about the memory effect of light in the brain?
You mean the effect on the memory?
The memory effect of light in the brain.
What's that mean?
For example, you go in the sunlight and you have a memory effect from the sun. If you have some radiation in your eyes, if you have radiation on the head, depends on the hair. What do you think of the
memory effect? Yes. I'm not quite sure what you're getting at.
With the absorption of light,
yeah,
you have a memory effect in the cell.
Memory effect. I mean, the cellular changes will last for some time, depending on what they are. Yeah. You know, ATP doesn't last for that long.
No,
you know,
ATP is going very fast.
Yeah, but transcription factor and lead to protein expression, that does last a long time. Yeah. So, you know, how long? A day, maybe? A day or two, depending on what the proteins are in the cell. Now, in the organism, the changes last a lot longer.
Yes, 2 weeks.
Or even 6, 8 weeks sometimes for a single exposure. Now, that's because you really changed tissue structures, right? Like we were just talking about neurogenesis. Yeah. If you cause neurogenesis, the newly formed neurons are going to last a long time, and they're just going to go away.
Yes.
And I think the same thing would apply to newly formed synaptic connections. They're going to last a long time.
What do you think these light therapies for prevention?
I think it's a great idea for prevention.
For prevention, that it's
preconditioning.
For preconditioning, that in every offices are the possibilities to treat for prevention.
Well, I mean that's one issue. I mean, when you said prevention, I thought you were talking, for instance, about surgery, right? In my opinion, everybody who's going to have surgery should get preconditioned with photobiomodulation, okay, like the day before, a few hours before, because, you know, A, if you're going to have surgery, A, you're a bit anxious, right? And B, you're not doing anything else. So you could just
Okay.
put the LEDs on, A, it would calm you down a bit.
Medication.
Yeah, and B, it would precondition the tissue. So the healing and the pain and the inflammation could be a lot less, a lot less. You know, obviously, athletes precondition for sure, and especially in parts of training regimens. What about just regular people? Should you put it in indoor lighting? Put 850 nanometers? You could easily do it because it's invisible. Nobody would know. It would make zero difference, the actual room lighting. But, you know, if you consider folks in old people's homes, right? They're sat there all day, they never go outside, and they're exposed to artificial light. It should almost certainly have near infrared in it, right?
Good idea, good idea. Thank you very much.
All righty, it's a pleasure.